Hello and welcome. Today is a unique episode. When many of us were growing up, the idea of a school counselor simply didn't exist. If a child was quiet, anxious, or struggling emotionally, the common response was they'll grow out of it. Mental health wasn't discussed, emotional well being wasn't measured, and the pressures children carried often remained invisible. But today, the world our children are growing up in is so dramatically different. Academic competition has intensified, social media has reshaped identity and relationships, and children are navigating emotional landscapes far more complex than earlier generations ever experienced. Schools are no longer just places where children learn mathematics or science. Increasingly, they are also spaces where emotional resilience, mental health, and personal well being are nurtured. That is where school counselors play a critical role. They often become the quiet listeners, the trusted guides, and sometimes the only safe space for a child to express fears, confusions, or anxiety. In today's episode, we explore the hidden emotional world of school children through the eyes of someone who works with them every single day, a child psychologist and school counselor here in Bangalore. We'll talk about what children today are struggling with, the pressures they face from school, parents, and society, and how families can build emotionally healthy homes, and why mental health support in schools has become more important than ever. Just one stat will shock you. One adolescent child dies by suicide every hour in our country, and that's just the recorded case. Further, for young listeners who may be interested in this field, we'll also explore what it takes to build a career, helping children navigate their emotional journeys. This is a conversation not just about children, but about the future generation that we are shaping. Let's begin and welcome Shrishti Jain, our guest today. Welcome, Shrishti.
Thank you so much, Nalin, for that kind introduction. And it's a pleasure to be here. And I'm really looking forward to sharing some thoughts from my experience in school counseling. Thank you so much.
So tell me, what does a school counselor do on a day-to-day basis?
So, if we look at the role of the school counselor here, it's not just confined to the four walls. We do a lot of events, we do a lot of initiatives just to make the conversation around mental health a very comfortable conversation. Uh, Nowadays, things have been changing because it's not just the school counselors, but the other stakeholders who are related to school counseling are also taking initiative, and they are also talking about school counseling and mental conversations.
Stakeholders means three, right? There's a student, there's the faculty, and there are parents. These are three stakeholders. So,
Yes.
do the faculty and parents also approach you?
Yes, so as I said that nowadays parents are also becoming very open about mental health conversation, and they actually started from home itself. They are having conversation with their kids, so it's quite surprising to see that we get a referral from the parents where they share their trust in us. They say that we rely on the school counselors, we rely on the psychologists, because students and children, they cannot share everything with their parents. So the best part is they are becoming very open about it, and whenever they feel the need of it, they immediately refer their children to us.
So, typically, when children approach you, what kind of issues do they come up with? I mean, generally, what is the common issues that they come to seek help for?
Yeah, so now if I look at the issues, I would say that it is not a very limited area. And over the years, working in the school environment, I have noticed certain patterns that repeatedly emerge in the lives of a young people. So, one of the common themes that I see is friendship conflict. And as we know, adolescent is a stage where peer relationship become extremely important for identity and belonging. So many students want to be liked and accepted so strongly that they sometimes tolerate unhealthy dynamics in friendship.
Is there a particular age group where they approach you more? A particular age?
So this is yes. So this is so I am basically here for grade 6 to grade 12. So I'm dealing with all kind of emotional and behavioral concerns which are being brought to me from grade 6 to grade 12. But when you talk about friendship conflicts, it starts from the time when they start realizing that there is a need to be belong. There is a need to be the part of a circle. So it starts basically from the age age. Yeah.
Wow.
A grade 3 or 4, we can say that is the time when the students they start building their own circles, having their own social network, and they have the need to feel accepted or to get validated by a particular circle.
So, when we hear, especially earlier generations like mine, who are likely to be parents of the children who come to your school, uh, what is the most common misconception about a student counselor? Some of them may be looking at you as, do we really need this? What is the most common misconception?
So if I look at my time, because I'm also coming from the millennial generation, first of all, we never had this concept of school counselor. We never had the concept of school special educator or the shadow teacher. The mostly misconception about the school counselor nowadays is when parents they feel that you don't have to go to the school counselors because we are there to help you out. Why you have to discuss all your life and portray everything about a family in front of somebody who is not even the part of a family? So they generally feel that it's not okay to share what you're going through. It's not okay to talk about yourself, about your friend circle, about your family members to someone we are not even aware of.
So that
So that's
actually leads to that answer actually leads to my next question.
okay.
So, is a student counselor's role only to solve an issue when it comes, or is there something preventive also that you can do?
Anything that we feel is becoming an alarming situation, anything that we feel becoming a trend which is unhealthy or not right for the students, we generally take preventative sessions. Like, for example, the vaping is into trend. So it is definitely very important for the school counselors and even the psychologists to talk about it, talk about the ill effects of it, and some of the things that we feel has to be preventative uh, regarding bullying, anything that we feel students should not be doing it, or students should not become the part of it. We always see the trend grade wise or maybe the age wise. We take the topic and we have the discussion about it with the students. Now, something that we feel has already happened and we haven't spoken about it and we feel the need of it, we try to curate the session as per the grade wise, as per the need wise, and we also do the restorative sessions for the students who have already gotten into it.
So,
So, yeah.
it's interesting you say that. Sometimes I wonder, and I would love to have your take on this. Are children facing more challenges today, or have we become more aware and it was always there?
I think young people today are navigating a very different environment compared to the previous generation, and there are few major challenges that stand out, and I would like to discuss that here. The first is the information overload. So today's adolescents they are constantly exposed to information through social media, online platform, and even the digital spaces. So while access to information is powerful, it also means that there is a constant comparison and exposure to unrealistic expectations. So many people are comparing their everyday lives to curated and the edited versions of the other people's life. Another major concern that we have came across is digital illiteracy. So many students consume a large amount of online content and they are not very equipped with the skills to critically evaluate it. And they may not always know that what they're seeing online is authentic or is it edited or even manipulated. So this can affect their self-esteem. In fact, it is affecting their self-esteem, it is affecting their expectations and also the understanding of reality.
Yeah. So
The another, yeah, please.
you're right. A lot of emotional stress that children face
Right,
comes from
right.
either academics, social media, peer pressure, or parent expectation. I mean, uh, I thought parent expectation was a bigger issue at our time, but is it still there a lot, or have parents got chilled out of it?
It depends on family to family, Nalin. It all depends like how you are, dealing with the emotional needs of the child. Uh, One important thing I often reflect is that when we talk about the challenges that young people face, we sometimes, quickly say that children today have changed. And this is a statement which I have been hearing quite a lot from the parents itself. But I think it is equally important to pause and ask whether the environment around the children, including the parenting styles, has also changed, or is it only the children who are changing?
So,
So
you must be observing a lot of children and parents, etc. Are there any, when a child is struggling, are there any signs a parent should look out for?
I think the parents are the best people or the immediate caregivers or the stakeholders who can identify if there is a change in their children. It can be behavior changes, it can be emotional changes, it can be psychological changes. So the moment you realize that the child is not behaving in a certain way, it's always good to have a conversation with the child. Now, if you think that the child is not very comfortable, sharing things with you, or it could be maybe, the child is takes a lot of time to open or disclose about what exactly is happening in its life. It's always better to approach a professional or a psychologist so that the parent can get to know how collaboratively they can support the child's well-being here.
So when you watch a very diverse set of parents and you live in a very diverse cosmopolitan city like Bangalore, uh, do you find often that parents are trying to live their dreams for their children?
It is there. I think it's not just academically, but I would say that it is happening in a lot of aspects. So I think nowadays, if I say that parents are becoming very open in having a conversation about relationship, also, uh, we have seen most of the time when parents come and share their worries and concern about their children being into a relationship. Like they would say that in our time we met people face to face, but they never understood that social environment was completely different at that particular point of time. Now, dating pool is global and digital apps. They are creating constant, options. Communication is fast, visual, and often less personal. And we focus on self identity, boundaries, and even mental health. So the question is how environment is shaping the relationship here. So it's not just limited to the academic expectations of the parents, but it is going way beyond that, uh, where parents want to know more about relationship than just academic.
So, one of the most difficult times I faced as a parent, that when my children were growing up, till they were about, say, 12, 13, 14, they were nice, warm, cuddly, they wanted us as part of their lives. Then came a 4, 5 year phase, say from high school onwards, where we were excluded from their lives. They were distant, emotionally distant, and they felt alien. How do parents deal with that situation when the children completely cut you off in that phase of life where friends become more important and peer pressure takes over, and they just seem to be struggling for stuff, but they won't share it with you.
I think what we generally tell to the parents that it's very very important to talk about the boundaries with with their children. It is very important to talk about consent. It is very important to talk about emotional availability and also mental health in relationship. So I think when we talk about Gen Zs and Zen Alpha, they are introducing new skills that were very less common before. And many millennials, they also stayed in a unhealthy relationship longer before leaving or questioning was discouraged. So when we look at this generation, the Gen Zs and Zen Alpha, they are more comfortable sharing that, this is not working for me. I need some more space and I deserve emotional safety. So it is important for the parents to not take that as a defiance, but to accept it, what the child is saying to them. So there is both progress and confusion happening at the same time, where the parents are considering it that how a child can deny, how a child does not defy, whereas the child feels that it is my way of communication, my emotional needs to my parents. So there has to be more communication between the parents. The parents need to understand the aspect, the emotional
Yeah.
aspect of the child.
More and probably different way of communicating and engaging,
Right,
right? Are
right.
there are there common parenting mistakes that parents make at that phase?
The one common parenting mistake that I would say most of the parents are making. Uh, so whenever the child approaches the parent, and every time I feel the child approaches you, it is not because of the advice that they need from you. It's just they want the presence of you. They want an adult to listen to you. So most of the parents, they feel that if the child is sharing the problem with me, it is because they need the solution or the advice. So it's very important for the parents to just pause and listen to what the child is saying.
Yeah.
So that connection has to be built just by listening to your child and not questioning why this is happening. What did you do? It must be your mistake. So it is more of validation the child is looking for.
It doesn't help that when your child is between say 14 to 18, you're probably at the peak of your professional career in your mid 40s,
Right,
and you have all this pride, ego, respect outside, and inside your teenage child treats you like shit. So it's a very difficult time. Both are struggling in a way.
right.
But tell me something. Is there, uh, say, do you recommend one common family habit that families can keep for remaining engaged or for mental well-being as a unit? One daily habit or something like that.
Yeah, so I think it's if adults are willing to listen, we may realize that young people are not simply asking for the change. They are inviting us to build healthier emotional culture in families, schools, and communities. So I think we just cannot believe in spending quantity time with our children, because most of the time parents feel the more time we spend with our children, it's better for them. Now, here it all depends how you're spending time with your child. So it can be maybe at the end of the day, for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, you all can come together and have a conversation about how the day went. Or it can be, some form of game that you can talk. It can be, watching something which is common amongst all of you, and you can have a discussion regarding it. So, spending 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the day and discussing about each other's life would definitely help all the family members to feel connected, stay connected, and, always ready to have, looking forward for the next day.
Fair enough. Coming to your own job, for you emotionally yourself, what is the most challenging part of your job? I'm sure it's not fun listening to people's problems all day. It's much like a doctor or a therapist, etc. So, what is the most emotionally challenging part of your job?
Okay, so I think. I would like to focus on that. When we talk about being into a particular profession, as every profession requires a certain skill set and some kind of values and some kind of coping skills so that you can feel better about yourself. So since this profession requires emotional responsibility and continuous learning, I always believe that it's first, it's your responsibility to love yourself, to accept yourself, and to validate yourself before anyone else does it for you. So, for me, I always prefer spending some time, at least an hour for myself, so that I feel rejuvenated, I feel fresh, and I feel that I am ready for other people and I'm ready to help other people here. uh, some of the things that I keep doing is, staying connected with my family members. I love some of the things like dancing. I love spending time with friends. I love going for a walk, or it can be you. You can say that some form of movement because ultimately it gives you a dopamine rush. So
So you find
anything,
different
the
ways to engage
yes,
your mind and decompress. But
yes,
as you go through this journey, right, from studying for this profession now, has it helped you to understand some aspects of your own childhood and what
yes.
happened to you at that time?
Yes, it does. It does. So when we become the school counselors and we know that we are dealing with a lot of parents, we're dealing with a lot of students, and there are times when we, relate some of the other aspects which are happening with our own child. So we are learning a lot in this profession, and I would say that if you are into psychology, if you are into mental health, there are so many things which you are doing to yourself, to your family unconsciously. It can be thinking about a particular aspect that, oh, it did happen with my child, and I could have used another approach to support my child or help my child. So that happens quite a lot. And in a way, we indirectly, unconsciously, we keep helping our child also.
So I'm sure, through your professional experience, you have come across a lot of cases which gave you a lot of satisfaction and a lot that broke your heart. If you had to pick one that was most gratifying and one that was most heartbreaking, what would those be?
Okay, so something which we get on daily basis, it's mostly the academic anxiety and the fear of failure. So the anxiety is not only about the academics. We always assume that children who are coming with their anxiety related to academics, uh, I think it's more about fear of disappointing your parents and not meeting the societal expectation. So here, the counseling majorly focuses on helping students to develop healthier coping strategies, realistic expectations, and self-compassion, rather than defining their worth solely through academic achievement. We also psychoeducate the parents in those situations where we tell them that it is not tied with the academic achievement that the child is having. The serious concerns that we openly get nowadays is digital relationship conflict. That you know, friendship and relationship, they are no longer limited to physical spaces like school corridors or playgrounds, but much of the adolescent social life is now existing online through messaging app or social media or digital communities. So, which is actually creating a lot of misunderstanding, comparison, and conflict. So, to make that feel easy for the students, we always prioritize taking the digital sessions for them about on digital literacy. We also, and it is not just limited to the students. It is important for the parents also to model the same behavior at our house. So we psychoeducate the parents as well. Um, I think digital relationship conflict is something which is at the peak, where we feel it may get worse if there is no psychoeducation happening at home. and even the parents are not realizing it. So I think it's important for the entire community, including the children, the parents, the teachers, to understand that, it is important for us to, um, implement and model the kind of behavior we want our children to have. Like, for example, the Karnataka government plan to restrict mobile phone use for children under 16 comes from a place of genuine concern, and also the intention behind this is quite understandable. But we were having a discussion, the discussion was going on in our counselors group, that do bans really work in our country? Because the real challenge is not the banning, it is more about the cultural readiness, or it is more about the support, the systematic support, which actually moves underground. So
Yeah, actually, when children watch today's movies, OTT series, and
hmm,
social media content,
right,
uh, early relationships, premarital sex, etc., has been normalized. It
right,
seems absolutely a normal thing to do without explaining the emotional load it puts on young
right,
adolescent or teenagers.
true,
So that's probably what you've hinted at many places in terms of relationship. But that
exactly,
does take a lot of toll on young people.
absolutely.
So one of the things in coaching that I find is that a lot of times I can see that the young adult or the adolescent or teenager is genuinely disturbed and having in struggling, but the parents refuse to acknowledge it. They absolutely refuse that something is possibly wrong. Do you face such situations? How do you break through that parental mental barrier?
Yeah, so as I said that, about the ban here, so I mean, it involves the question that you have raised just now, that it has to be the policy pressure on the tech companies, there has to be digital literacy programs in school, and even the stronger parent education around screen boundaries. So what can help here is, delaying giving personal smartphone for as long as possible. It is also keeping devices out of bedrooms at night. It is important for the parents to be curious that if the child is online, what exactly they are doing, not just to critically evaluate it, but to understand that what is going on in their life. It is important for the parents and the children to come together, have a conversation about setting the clear screen boundaries at home, and most importantly, what kind of digital behavior we are expecting from the parents and also the. So everything does not come on the child.
Okay.
So the real question here is whether adults are helping them learn how to live with technology safely and responsibly. And it's not about children should be using the technology. So it all depends on how you are helping your child transitioning. When you are giving a smartphone to your child, what kind of psychoeducation is going from your end? So it is more about preparing the child also for such a big thing. Because having a smartphone itself is a big responsibility, and it's your child prepare for it. So that's very, very important for a parent to understand that whether the child would be able to handle it, or there has to be some form of time that needs to be given for your child, to your child, to help him or her transition uh, to the
So
entire thing.
on our job readiness platform, we have hundreds of thousands of students who will watch this. For those who would like to become psychologists, counselors, etc., what is the path? How do you get there? What do you study? What do you do?
Okay, so the thing I want to say that it's a deeply meaningful conversation, profession, sorry. So the students who are interested in pursuing psychology as a career, there are few little things that I want to encourage them to keep in mind. The first thing is we need to be genuinely curious about people, because psychology, it begins with curiosity. why people think, how they feel, how they behave, why do they behave in a certain way. So, observing the human behavior, listening to their stories, trying to understand different perspective is very important foundation. Second thing is, there are certain values which cannot be learned at a later stage. So if you think that empathy is at your heart, uh, and you have patience, eventually you will learn to have patience when you get into when you get into this profession. So, because empathy is the heart of counseling and psychology, and people often come to psychologists during your vulnerable times in their life. So, if you are able to listen to them patiently without any judgment, if you are able to create a safe emotional space, then probably these skills are actually required to be a psychologist. And if
I
you
think
think it,
so. Of all the things that you've discussed, for a modern parent today, what is that one piece of advice that you would give for them to be successful in parenting their children?
so, first of all, I really want to thank all the parents here who are having the open conversation with their children at. And seriously, when I started my career 10 years back, it was one of the challenges that I had faced to have uh, a conversation around mental health with the parent because they were not ready for it. But lately, one positive change that I have observed is that conversations around mental health are becoming much more open and accepted in the families itself. So earlier, the parents, they hesitated to talk about emotional struggles because they always feared being judged or misunderstood. And above all that, they always fear that the child will be labeled. But things are changing in a very positive way. And more individuals, especially the young people, if I say, they are able to recognize that emotional well-being is an essential part of overall. So, when I talk about parents here, I've seen most of the moms, they are very good. They are able to express themselves very freely. But when it comes to men's mental health, expressing emotions has historically been discouraged. They are often told to be strong, silent, and resilient. But emotional strength, it does not mean that you have to express your feelings. It's completely okay for men to talk about their struggles, to seek support, express vulnerability rather than carrying everything silently within themselves. So, I would request all the parents here that if you think there is an incompatibility between you and your child, you both are not getting along well, please seek help. Talk about your feeling because it's not a sign of weakness. In fact, when a parent comes to us and they talk about that there is something not going right between me and my child, and I need help here. So it shows the sign of self awareness, it shows the sign of courage, and also the emotional maturity. So, if parents they continue to create spaces for their children to talk safely, to listen to each other with empathy and support each other, I think we can build communities that are not academically or professionally successful, but most importantly, emotionally healthy.
Then, Shrishti, listening to this conversation reminds me of something very important. Childhood may look the same on the outside, but it feels very different on the inside today. Children today are, growing up in a world that moves faster, compares louder, and judges earlier than any generation before them. The pressures they carry, we don't always see. The pressure to perform, to fit in, to succeed, and sometimes simply to be understood. What this conversation history today teaches us is that mental health in children is not about fixing problems after they appear. It is about building environments where children feel safe enough to express themselves before those problems grow silently. Parents, teachers, and schools play a powerful role here, not by being perfect, but by being present, by listening without judgment, by creating spaces where children know that their worth is not defined by marks, trophies, or rankings, but by who they are. But perhaps the real message in today's discussion: every child needs someone who listens deeply, understands patiently, and believes in them consistently. If we can offer that at home, in classrooms, and in our community, then we are not just raising successful children, we are raising emotionally strong human beings. Thank you for joining us today for this conversation. And until the next episode, take care of not only the children around you, but perhaps even the child within. Thank you, Srishti, and all the best.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nalin. Thank you for. Thank you.